Welcome to the King's Table, a podcast out of King's Hill Church in Boston, where we seek to elevate the Bible over opinion, answering the questions you have. I'm your host, Jonathan Mosley. On this episode, we have with us Thomas and Monica Maldonado and Soriah Hasanizadeh. Today, we'll be discussing what it means to challenge the status quo by moving strategically for the gospel after graduation, and we'll be talking about the 2-year challenge that you'll hear from our church a lot. Hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Thomas and Monica, Soriah, thanks for hopping on today's episode.
Thanks for having us.
You all three you guys are encouraging stories because all three of you guys have decided to move to Boston to invest in seeing God's kingdom grow in the city. You guys, your yes was on the table. You had a burden to see a gospel movement happen in an urban area, and you moved from your homes and you said, I'm coming to Boston. So I love that. I love that. That's bold faith. And what I want to do today is just listen in to y'all's decision to come here. What was kind of working in your heart as you guys did that? As you guys are in college and thinking about the next chapter of your life, why did you move to the city? So let's dive in. Really want to hear your stories. Encouraged that you're part of King's Hill. Encouraged by all of you following the Spirit's lead into the city. So, guys, here's my first question. What do you think the common narrative is for a college student that's graduating? What is it that's being told to you guys regarding what to pursue after you graduate? And how does your relationship with Jesus challenge that status quo?
Yeah, so I think especially from like parents and from your professors and things, the status quo for graduating college is like get a job, get a full-time job with great benefits, that you can stay there forever and make good money and make ends meet and start a family eventually, and I think that the details of that looks different depending on who you ask, especially from like your professors might differ from your parents, but generally the I guess common narrative is like have a 5-year plan. I'm going to work this kind of job, I'm going to get this kind of internship that's going to put me in this kind of company, and I may enjoy my job, but I'm doing this out of necessity, and this is just what everyone does.
Yeah, I think definitely in college, like that's all really college is talked about to prepare you for is the job. It's the next step. And it's really a rat race for finding the job, filling the position, and wherever that next job is, just taking it. And a lot of times it's take a job that's close to home because, your parents want you to stay near to them too. But having a relationship with Jesus is second to none. And when we're trying to look for what's next in our lives, for us it was more so where's Christ, where's His purpose for our lives, where's He leading us, versus I need to seek that job first because we know that with God in our lives, like He will provide that job for us as long as we follow and trust in Him to provide that.
Yeah, I think the same was for me. Especially my parents told me like finding a job is the number one priority. But when my relationship with Jesus became the most important thing in my life, I realized that my plans had to reflect that. And so making my job the number one priority of my post-graduation plans didn't make sense if Jesus was the number one priority of my life. And so having a relationship with Him was like, okay, now if I'm going to take this seriously, I have to plan and act in that faith and trust God to send me somewhere, wherever He wants me to go. And when I act in obedience, He'll provide what I need when it comes to a job. And even if that means I step out of my comfort zone and go somewhere outside of what I've known for my whole life, then if God is my number one priority, and if I say that, then I'm going to act on it too and trust Him with the whole process.
That's great. So guys, what made you decide on Boston? Right? Why work with the church plant? You know, being part of a church plant, typically they're smaller in nature. It's a lot harder to hide. You're asked to step in, contribute, not be a consumer, to serve, to lead. And in a lot of ways, you're going to grow as a disciple like crazy, because you're having to act out the New Testament. But it's often the harder route to take. But you guys said, I'm going to go to the city of Boston, where really low percentage of Christians are, and I want to invest in a church plant. What led you guys to that decision?
Yeah, for us, it was, part of the decision was my standing relationship with the churches in Boston doing Ginseng and during my collegiate career, and getting exposure to different church plants in Boston and just the needs around major cities throughout North America. And just having that familiarity already being there, knowing that there's churches that I can connect with and support. And then, as far as serving a church plant, I think for us, it was really just where's the greatest need. We can serve in a big church and have an impact, but these all the church plants throughout Boston, throughout um, the country have a greater need for laborers. They have greater need for Christians to come and be a light in a place that has very few Christians, and so just being willing to take on a larger load and knowing that the Lord provides strength and just the ability to do that made the decision a lot easier because we knew we could trust Him to provide again if we just followed Him in that.
Now, Thomas, you mentioned ginseng. Talk to our listeners about what that is, in case they're unfamiliar with that term.
Yeah, Jensen's just a summer program for college students where they can spend 6 to 8 weeks in different cities across North America, including Canada, just spending their time that summer learning about what it is to live their lives with on God's mission and God's purpose in mind, and just really understanding really what it is to live as a Christian, not just live as an elite Christian or live as a super Christian, but just what it means to live out Christ in your lives, in your day to day.
Yeah, that's great. Soriah, for you, why Boston? Why join a church plant?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a complicated story. Um, but I first knew that I wanted to help out with a church plant, and then I found out about Boston. So I guess the shortened version of the story is I was in a pretty serious relationship, and we were considering moving to Michigan to help out a church plant. Our previous college pastor was planting a church there, and so the plan was I would graduate in May, and we would get married in May, and then we'd move to Michigan. Um, this is like May 2020. So January 2020, we broke up, and that obviously changed a lot of my plans. I didn't really know what was next for me. Obviously, I couldn't proceed with the plans I had, so I thought, I think I still want to move with the church plant. I really wanted to go somewhere where there weren't as many laborers as there were in Texas, and share the gospel with people who either are unfamiliar with the church or have never heard the gospel. And so at first I was like, well, I guess I could still go to Michigan. But after hearing about how the church was doing, it seemed that there wasn't really a need. And so I was kind of starting from scratch. It was like, well, I can go anywhere. I'm trusting the Lord to provide a job, so that's not really narrowing my search down anymore. So I really needed help figuring out like where to go, how to narrow this down a bit. So I ended up talking to somebody from the Send Network, and I said, "Okay, I can go anywhere in the world. I need like a few options of the cities that need, the most laborers." And so he gave me 3 cities. He gave me Boston, Kansas City, and LA/San Francisco. And almost immediately, upon doing research and just talking to people, Boston came to the forefront. And so when I called David Butler, the Cincinnati missionary, he told me all about the spiritual climate of Boston. He said 3% were Christian. And that to me was crazy. In Texas, everyone at least claims to be Christian. And so this is just, 3%, that's crazy. And he was talking about how it's mostly young adults and college students. And that's my jam. I love college students and young people. And yeah, he just talked about the lostness and the culture of it. And it was very clear, like, Boston is where I'm meant to go. And so he gave me a short list of churches to look into. Kings Hill was one of them. So.
As you guys are sharing, both of you have said the same two words. One is, God, take me to the need, show me the need. Right? I think about when Jesus talks about the living water that's going to live inside of us, the Holy Spirit. Right? Well, if I have living water, I don't want to go to where the grass is green. I want to go to where the grass is brown and it's dying, so that I can pour my life out as living water onto what's dying, to see if God would see it fit to see it brought back to life. And so you guys have said, first, where's the need? Let me check out that. And then the second thing that I heard you guys say is, I want to be a laborer. In other words, God, use me. God, show me the need, and God, use me. And you've been available to the Lord to guide you to wherever he wants to take you. I think when I think about living the kingdom-minded life, those are some essentials. Being available, asking, Lord, here I am. Where do you want me to go? And being faithful in the small things. And you guys have lived that out. We talk about living on mission a lot. Live on mission. We say that at our church. We encourage that. We push that. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean to live on mission?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind is, especially in this context, is living on mission means planning my life on mission. So pursuing the future in the lens of obedience, in the lens of glorifying the Lord, and not myself. So, for me, it started with scrapping all of the self-glorifying plans that I had, and putting, like, the glory of the Lord as first and foremost in my mind. And from there, it seemed things started to fall in place, and the Lord called me and directed me into what that looked like. And that's just kind of big picture. But I think, in the details, in the day to day, it means, reminding ourselves of why we were put on this earth, like why the Lord has called us out to the world, and remembering to treat our lives like a mission instead of, my life is for me. So how do I incorporate the Lord, and talking to those who don't know him, or encouraging those who do know him, and yeah, just keeping that focus every day, and letting it guide my conversations. And I think the Lord provides opportunities from there. It's less about, like, oh, I'm gonna go stand on the street corner and pull aside people and have an evangelistic moment, but allowing the Lord to put this lens on my eyes and say, like, where are opportunities for me to just guide this towards Jesus, towards the gospel. So
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. What I would say is just the boiling down to living with intentionality, and again, like you said, taking advantage of every detail. Like, I know something we talked a lot about before moving here was wanting to live in Mission Hill, to be more accessible to the church and just invite people in, and just the strategy of that. So just something as simple as, like, moving to what city, but even within that city, where you choose to live, just so that we can welcome our neighbors in, really wherever, but specifically those that go to Kings Hill right here too. I think it looks like making the most of, like, every night, like having friends with people over for dinner, and just sharing your lives with people here, making your job missional, whatever it is, even if it's not a ministry job, which are great, but also just finding how to share Jesus with coworkers wherever you're at, and just, serving him in every aspect of it.
So Thomas and Monica, you've been in Boston since what month did you guys get here? It hasn't been long ago.
July.
July. Soriah, you've been up here since
August.
Since August, right? So a month and 2 months since you made the move. How have you had to rely on God's leading, and where is God growing your faith right now?
Yeah, I think one thing is just relying on Him for just direction in the small things, like learning how to relate to a completely different culture. You're living in still the American culture, but it's very different than the South. And so relying on Him to know how to connect with people and just being intentional in those conversations, being someone who says, like, is inviting and talks about the life of a Christian and, going to church on Sundays and just opening up for those conversations. And I think an important thing that I've kind of caught on to since moving here is just because you move somewhere doesn't mean that you just this switch changes and you become completely gospel intentionality and missionally motivated. Like it's important to live that out wherever you are, and just continue to be faithful where you're at, so that when you do make that that larger act of obedience of moving or going to an unknown place or unfamiliar place, it's a lot easier to just continue to do the things that you were doing just in a different context. And so just trying to be obedient with that and seeking God, knowing that He's going to make those connections for us, build those deeper friendships within the context of Mission Hill and Kingsville Church.
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was a lot of reliance just on the basics of even getting a job here. Like I was certified to teach in Alabama and in like half the states that are nearby the South, and just random states that had that certain certification. And it was pretty challenging to try to get a new certification and find job opportunities here where I could still use my major. And the Lord was just really faithful in providing an opportunity that's not exactly like I imagined it would be, but still a nonprofit where I get to use my special ed major 2 days before I moved, and just how He shows Himself faithful in His timing. Just taking like one step at a time, and then Him leading us the rest of the way, I think has been a continual theme I've seen.
I think I've had to, like, first and foremost, trust the Lord with boldness. I think, making the decision to move here was hard, but actually, like, putting down roots and getting started here is, proving to be pretty different, I guess. And I'm normally not the most like social extroverted from the get-go. I have to take some time to warm up, but thankfully the Lord has provided a different kind of boldness that I haven't really seen in myself, and so I can't help but think that it's from the Lord. And so I think that's been really helpful in that I wasn't really expecting to have any kind of gospel conversations until further down the road, and I've been able to. And just in like making friends and being social, I was expecting this to be a lot longer of a process, but I'm already feeling connected in community. As for like more practical things, I guess I'm still trusting the Lord to provide job wise and financially. I think that's something I'm having to live out to, what I said I would trust Him with when I decided to move here. So that's definitely another thing. And then also just companionship. The biggest thing I prayed for before I came here was, Lord, be my friend. And He has proven to be a worthwhile friend. And I think it's grown me in my intimacy with the Lord, and not just like God is my boss and the object I worship, but He is also like a close companion and dear friend of mine. And being able to just enjoy time with Him, and I think that's something that's definitely blessed me, and I've trusted him with, and he's provided for sure.
Yeah, on this end, guys, it's been just have loved to see God work in your lives as you've taken steps of both faith with Monica, just underlining how God's provided the job for you, and uh, for Thomas, you didn't mention this, but the scholarship that God has given you to Northeastern with grad school, but then also seeing you wake up early in the mornings to serve at Duncan because you're married and you want to provide for your family, you want to make ends meet, and just the determination, the love that you have for the city to be able to take a job like that. And even Soriah, coming up here without a job, just you said I'm gonna work for the church part time, and I'm gonna wait and watch God open up other doors. But I know God's called me, and so I'm gonna go, and I don't have to have all my ducks in a row. I'm just gonna trust God's gonna put them in a row when He wants to put them in a row. And so it's been fun to watch God guide your steps. I mentioned at the end here that I would lay out this 2-year challenge because you guys have accepted it in a lot of ways. You said we're going to come to Boston for at least 2 years, and the 2-year challenge is that and if you're a college student listening in, it's after you graduate, pray about either staying in Boston for 2 years, since the city has given you a lot with education, community, that kind of thing. Say, you know what, I'm going to give 2 years back, and I'm going to love the city of Boston and pour into my local church, and or go somewhere else strategically and be part of a church plant somewhere else for 2 years. For many of our college students, the world is wide open after you graduate, and so use it strategically. A prayer for us at Kings Hill, if you've been around our church for a while, our prayer, you've heard it, is we want to see churches started all over the city of Boston because there are neighborhoods that they still don't have gospel-centered churches. And part of what we need to see churches started in the city is we need to see people committed to the city. And so our prayer behind the scenes is, God, would you raise up 50 people over the next 5 years that would commit to the city of Boston, that would be laborers that say, I'll give it 2 years. I'll give all that I am to see this gospel movement happen. And really the point is not that you would stay in Boston. The point is whether you stay or go, it's on purpose, right? You stay in Boston on purpose, or you go somewhere else, but it's on purpose. It's with God's mission first and foremost. That's what's guiding, driving, motivating you for what's next. And so the 2-year challenge is saying, when I graduate, I want to be part of a church plant, whether it's Kings Hill or somewhere else in the US or even internationally. But I'm gonna be open and available to what God wants me to do. And I want to go to the hard places for the glory of God. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's discussion as you listened in to the stories of Thomas, Monica, and Soriah. And I'm also hoping you would take this 2-year challenge to heart and pray about either staying in Boston on purpose or going somewhere on purpose after you graduate. Thanks for joining us at the King's Table. If you would like more resources or information about Kings Hill Church, you can visit our website at www.kingshillboston.com.